What's up everyone, this is Dariusz Kalbarczyk, co-founder of NG Poland, JS Poland, AI Poland and Angular Master.dev. Welcome back to the Angular Master podcast. Today we have a special guest from the Netherlands, Freelance Senior Frontend Engineer, Angular fanatic, speaker, published author, ladies and gentlemen, Roberto Heckers. Hi Roberto, how are you?
I'm great. I'm very excited to be on the podcast. As mentioned before, it's my first time, so happy to be on here.
For those who don't know you yet, please tell us about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm Roberto Heckers. I'm a 33-year-old software engineer from the Netherlands. I wrote a book about Angular as well, Effective Angular. I've been developing software since about 2013, but got serious in 2017 after a career switch. I worked a lot with consulting agencies, so I got familiar with different code bases in a short amount of time, basically. And at the moment, I'm working as a freelance software engineer, specializing in Angular, and I currently work for the largest energy company in the Netherlands.
So what inspired you to write Effective Angular and how did you decide which topics to cover?
My motivation can be divided into two different things, basically. I love to share knowledge about Angular. I've been doing this for about 2 years as well on LinkedIn by posting about Angular about 5 days a week. LinkedIn is a great medium. It only allows you for short bits and pieces of code, basically. And I thought it would be really cool to bring a more structured and complete bundle of knowledge to the community. And that's basically what became the book, Effective Angular. And the second reason for writing the book was a bit to challenge myself. I like to challenge myself, and I have dyslexia. So this seemed like a great way to challenge myself and do something that in earlier years of my life I would have thought not have been possible. Those are the two things why I wanted to write a book and how I came on the topics. First, I wanted to provide a complete picture of the Angular framework and its capabilities, basically. Second, I wanted to cover topics you encounter when building large enterprise-scale applications, and include topics like design patterns and NX state management and stuff like that. And lastly, as we all might know, Angular is rapidly changing at the moment with things like standalone components and signals. So I also wanted to touch on those new things, basically.
Can you explain why NX is a key part of building scalable Angular applications?
Absolutely. Well, NX is a powerful toolkit, and it has become kind of the go-to solution within the Angular community for building large-scale monorepos. It will help you significantly to speed up tests, builds, and your entire CI process. It has things like incremental builds and computational caching, which ensures you basically don't build things that are already built unless they are changed. It also has great tools to set up module boundaries so that you can't willy-nilly import everything into everything, so you don't get spaghetti and import the wrong libraries into the wrong places, basically. Another thing I think NX does great is that it helps to shift your mental model a little bit. It pushes you to develop in a library-first approach, so it really pushes you to build your code into separate libraries, and that lets you think in more of a API type of design for your code, which helps you to build smaller, more reusable pieces of code in general that are less entangled in each other. So those are some of the things I would say NX helps you with when building large and scalable code bases.
In the book, you mention using RxJS and NgRx for state management. How do these tools complement each other in Angular projects?
RxJS and NgRx are basically like two pieces of a puzzle. At least that's how I always like to explain it. NgRx enables you to create reactive state using the Redux design pattern, and it gives you the structure and predictability you need when handling complex global state. But under the hood, NgRx leverages RxJS. So it only makes sense for you basically to do the same and handle the observable streams they generate out of their state with RxJS as well. And yeah, that's how the two really work nicely together. Since the introduction of signals, NgRx also provides signal-based approaches, of course. So if you use signal state or signal store, you might lean a little bit less on RxJS, but yeah, in most cases you will still find the good old approach, and it's very complementary to each other.
Can you give us an example of how to reactive programming with RxJS improve the performance or usability of an Angular app?
I think one of the most common and straightforward examples is when you have a search input and the user is typing and you want to fetch some data to display some suggestions or directly show what the feedback on what the user is typing based on something you get from an API. Without RxJS, this quickly leads to excessive HTTP requests because you're basically making a API call for each keystroke. And your API won't like that, and your front-end application neither. So our RxJS helps you with operators like distinct until changed and debounce and stuff like that to mitigate this issue and ensure you only make HTTP requests when something changes in the input and once every so many milliseconds, for example. Another cool example would be when you have parallax scrolling. So when you scroll down the page and on the fore and background, you have like images that react on the scrolling compared to the main layer of your application. So when you scroll down or up, the images start to move and animate. This also can lead to heavy CPU usage and performance issues because the scroll event is triggered very rapidly. And if you trigger animations on each event that is triggered by the scroll, it can overload your CPU and lead to lagging animations that aren't smooth anymore. And also this issue can be mitigated by handling the events in an async data stream using from event, for example, from RxJS, and then adding a throttling time operator. So only the scroll event will fire, every 100 or 150 milliseconds. So you give your browser and CPU a little bit of slack.
You dive into Angular's new features like Standalone API and Signals. How do these features reduce complexity in applications?
Well, if we start with the standalone components, for example, I think they bring many advantages. One of them is, of course, it's a lot easier to handle your dependencies. You simply import in the component what it depends on, and that's it. Compared to ng module-based applications, especially when it's a large application, this can help you a lot reducing bugs and make it a lot easier to manage the dependencies, as I said, because with ng module-based applications, especially if they are large, you end up building a lot of shared modules, and this often leads to circular dependencies and hard to debug problems and often increase bundle sizes because you're probably going to end up importing stuff you don't really need yet in one of the shared modules. So that's one of the things. Another thing that standalone components brings is that you can easily lazy load each route. This is also possible with modules, of course, but with standalone components, it's a lot easier to do for each route. And they are more isolated. So the standalone components, are more isolated units, basically. And that makes it a lot easier to maintain and test them because it's clear what they depend on. And you can just basically directly mimic that within your test file. And it also, for me at least, helps to push me to make my components less dependent on stuff, because if I have a large imports array in it, I'm gonna think like, yeah, well, how can I reduce this? This component depends on way too much stuff that isn't good. So it also helps me in that aspect. So yeah, a lot of good things if you ask me for the standalone components. Then about the signals, I think they offer a great alternative for handling reactive states. So while RxJS is amazing and probably still reigns supreme in many instances, for junior developers, the code can often look quite scary and hard to follow. And RxJS can also become notoriously hard to unit test with marble testing. A lot of developers, don't like that. So with Signals, you have a much more straightforward and easy to follow approach, basically. And together with the computed signals and the effects, you have all the pieces there to manage your state effectively. It's a lot easier to manage some state. I wouldn't say it's perfect for everything, but in a lot of cases, it really helps to simplify things and eliminate a lot of boilerplate that's often associated with RxJS.
What design patterns do you recommend for developers using Angular, and why are they particularly effective?
You have, of course, the design patterns that are embedded within the framework, like dependency injection, observables, the factory pattern, singletons. All these things are really embedded in the framework, so it only makes sense to use them because they will work naturally well together with the framework. Another design pattern I really like for Angular is the facade pattern. It's also used a lot by the community, and for medium to larger size applications, I think it's a real lifesaver, and it abstracts away the business logic and state management from your components. It will allow you to write much cleaner and simpler components and have a clear depth of split between the components and the business logic and state management. And it also allows you to easily swap your state management if that need ever arises, because the facade will basically define an interface, and as long as you apply that interface, you can just switch the logic behind it basically without touching your component layer, so that decouples it really nicely. Another thing I really like, it's not the textbook design pattern, but it's smart and dumb components. I think you really should apply that within your Angular applications. It also helps you to develop more reusable components and don't create unnecessary dependencies basically. And then lastly, when you have larger applications and you need to manage complex states, I personally like the Redux pattern a lot, which is used in libraries like NgRx and NgXS. It's really useful to create predictable state management.
Welcome to Angular Master Podcast by NG Poland. It's great to have you here. We are diving into real-world Angular tips and help you grow as a developer step by step. Subscribe to stay in the loop. Leave us a comment if you're enjoying the ride. And hey, we've got more for you. Check out the JavaScript Master Podcast and the AI Master Podcast. Let's learn and grow together. Could you talk about the importance of Angular directives and pipes when it comes to manipulating the DOM effectively?
Angular directives and pipes are essential for effective DOM manipulation by providing a higher level of abstraction that reduces the need to directly access the DOM basically. Pipes and directives ensure reusability and make sure you don't repeat yourself, so you adhere to the dry principle. because directives and pipes encapsulate the logic, it also is easier to maintain, test, and scale your code. Yeah, directives basically allow you to extend the powers of the HTML. Then structural directives allow you to manipulate the structure of the DOM by adding or removing elements based on some logic, while the attribute directives allow you to alter the behavior or appearance of your HTML elements. You can think of things like hover state or highlight, making elements draggable and so on. And then pipes are more to transform the values within your template. So when you put them all together, you can basically transform values in your templates, add visual things, or add and remove elements in your DOM all without directly accessing the DOM. So yeah, that's why they are very effective.
Your book covers testing with Cypress and Jest. What testing strategies do you think are essential for ensuring the quality of Angular app?
For me, testing should give you confidence to merge and deploy your code without having to worry you break anything. Things like setting up coverage benchmarks or utilizing methodologies like test-driven or behavior-driven development can help you to achieve this. But I sometimes feel we put too much weight on methodologies like this, and it becomes more of the goal than really the thing it tries to achieve. So we strive for 100% code coverage, for example, but then again, when we have it, we're still not confident we can merge our code without any issues. So while test-driven development or behavior-driven development are great frameworks or tools to give you the confidence, I think the main thing you should try to achieve is building to something that nothing will break when you basically run your test. I do think there are some things you can do should do as the bare minimum when setting up your test strategies. First, you should have unit tests, of course, in place to ensure your functions are implemented correctly and behave as expected under different conditions. It's also paramount to write integration tests for your components and templates to see if everything works together correctly, also with your services. And then you should have some integration tests and end-to-end tests that test more of the perspective of the user, basically, and maybe also test against the acceptance environment, so you can really mimic the journey of a user with a real API and see if things break or not. I think those are some things you definitely should do when setting up your tests.
What challenges have you faced when managing the application state in Angular, and how do Signals and NgRx help solve them?
One of the main issues that arise when you have complex state and don't have good state management solutions in place is making unintended changes to your state. And you have to create clone versions of reference objects basically to not mutate them. In complex applications, this is basically a task doomed to fail, and something like NgRx ensures that your state is immutable, and you can safely retrieve parts of your state and mutate them locally without affecting your global state. Another problem that that becomes harder to debug. Another problem is that your state becomes harder to debug when it's mutated all over the place, and something like NgRx reducers, you will always know where the state is mutated, so you basically can zero down much easier where you need to start debugging and where the problem can arise, compared to when you don't use something like NgRx. And then when you have a lot of state, retrieving and combining and manipulating your state into the necessary data structures, it can become hard and complex for some developers, definitely if you have less experience, to do it with RxJS. So this is where I would say Signals can help you a lot. Signals are great to handle component state or to simplify how you retrieve and compose your global state. Because often if you have a lot of data streams, asynchronous data streams, and you need to combine them with RxJS, it can become hard for junior developers. And with modern solutions, you can also select your state as signals, and then combining it with compute it. It's a lot easier and easier to follow for a lot of people. So that's how signals can help in the whole thing, I guess.
How would you advise developers to optimize Angular application for performance, and what are the common pitfalls to avoid?
First, I would lazy load as much as possible. So with standalone components and now also deferral blocks, it becomes really easy, and you can ensure you only load what the user actually needs and sees on the screen. Next, I would say use on-push change detection, use signals inside your templates whenever possible. If you're using images, use the ng-optimize image directive. Use the new control flow syntax to implement for loops in your templates, because it enforces you to use the track function and that optimized rendering of the list. Minimize direct DOM access and manipulations, because that will also slow down your app oftentimes. When you're using animations, try to first do it with CSS only instead of the built-in Angular animations, because CSS animations will be faster than JavaScript animations. A pitfall is don't call complex functions inside your template, because it will trigger it too often, most likely. Be careful with computed signals that run a lot of complex logic to resolve the value. When you really need to do that, ensure that you use on-track functions. So the computed signal doesn't run more than it needs to. Utilize pure pipes to transform values inside your templates, and be careful with the impure ones, because again, they will trigger a lot of re-renders on the screen. Always unsubscribe to prevent memory leaks. There are a lot of things you can do to optimize, basically. Optimize your RxJS pipe operators with filter, debounce, distinct until chains, and throttle time. So your async data streams are filtered and only handled when actually necessary. Use server-side rendering and pre-rendered pages wherever possible. You can perform CPU-intensive tasks with web workers. Use mark for check instead of detect changes. And the list probably goes on even more. So I think that are quite some points to focus on already.
Your book touches on building dynamic components with features like a template ref and projection. Why are those techniques important in complex apps?
Using features like content projection and template ref allow you to develop components that can receive the dynamic content. A simple example for content projection would be a modal. A modal simply needs the option to be shown and hidden, yet the content it displays it has basically endless variations. So in situations like that, content projection is your best friend, because you can just project the content inside the component, and that allows you for a bit more dynamic approach, basically. Template references are a bit more versatile compared to the content projection. A template ref can also be used for content projection if you want. Contrary to the regular content projection, with the template ref you can apply for loops and if statements on the projected content or switch blocks, which isn't possible with the ng content projection version. The template ref can also be used to easily display different templates inside your component. So inside the template of your component, you can create different template references. And it makes it easy to display them on different positions on the page, or display conditionally which template you want to show. Let's see, you can also provide context to template references. So you can display different content of different data inside the template, basically by providing it some context, all helping you to build much more dynamic components, basically. And if you want to make it truly dynamic, then you can lazy load your component and use something like the ng component outlet. That will help you to reduce the the bundle sizes if you lazy load the component and then use the ng component outlet to basically display it after you lazy load it. It's useful for something like a widget system, for example.
Could you discuss the best practices for implementing animations in Angular apps to enhance the user experience?
As I mentioned before, first I would say whenever possible, write the animation in CSS only because it will be more performant, generally speaking. Give preference to properties like transform, opacity, filter, and clip art because these can be GPU accelerated and perform better compared to properties like width and height and left and top, which will trigger reflows and repaints. Then I would say create reusable animations. If you're using the Angular animations API, that is, create reusable animations and animation steps as much as possible so you can reuse them. You use the group function for combining parallel animations and the sequence function when order is important in animation. Ensure that you're not triggering redundant animations. For example, check if the component is already in a transition state before triggering an animation again. Keep the animation durations consistent throughout the applications because that will be a better UX for the user if all animations take more or less the same time. Angular allows you to listen to animation lifecycle hooks such as keyframes done and keyframe start. This can be very useful to trigger other logic in the component once an animation starts or finished. So that's a nice one to look into as well. And another thing I would say is test your animations on mobile devices as well, because animations can sometimes be slow on a mobile device. So it's good to check them there as well before you actually release it.
Mobile first is one of the most important rules.
Yeah, I agree. Personally, I also first develop the mobile version and then go to the web of the desktop version.
You cover accessibility and internationalization in the book. Why are those topics important and how can developer ensure the Angular apps are accessible to everyone?
Well, we live in a world that relies more on computers and phones and applications we run on them. So as a developer, we need to ensure that basically everyone can use the applications we build. So they can use the same utilities and opportunities that everyone else can in life. Because as a developer, we often forget not everyone can use a keyboard or see a screen like we do ourselves. And it's not only for people with permanent disabilities, but also people with temporary disability can't use their hands, for example, or the side for a couple of weeks or months. They still gonna need the option to interact with a lot of applications, to pay their bills, for example, or to do their work or hobbies. A lot of things of your daily life are ruled by computers and mobile phones and the apps we run on them. Not only that, but if you work in a large organization, depending on your country, maybe there are also rules in place for this, so laws, and you need to adhere to a minimum standard as a company regarding accessibility. So it also becomes a more important topic when you start to work for large companies, because they're actually required by law to implement accessibility standards. And some of the simplest things you can do to achieve accessibility is, first of all, make your website multi-language, but then use semantic HTML, ensure you can navigate your software using the keyboard, add alt text for images, use ARIA labels and role attributes, provide enough contrast in your designs for people who don't see that well or don't see colors that well. Make sure the text can be scaled for, again, people who don't see that well. And when it scales, your application shouldn't distort all the way over. Add content for screen readers inside your functions. Whenever you render content that's isn't handled very well by a screen reader, for example, something like boss or a graph or charts, you can add clues with Angular material, for example, offer some utilities to do that and provide text screen readers can read out loud.
When building forms in Angular, what tips do you have for developers to handle complex form logic in a scalable way?
To start, I would say use reactive forms whenever you're building complex forms. Reactive forms trigger fewer change detection cycles, so it improves the performance. Reactive forms are also more explicit and have an immutable data structure, making it easier to track and manage the state of the form. And when you need to add dynamic fields to it, reactive forms also basically win it from template-driven ones, as they make this process easier and type-safe. Besides using the reactive forms API, I would advise to break up your forms into reusable components. For example, you probably need an address form group in more than one of your forms. So make a component out of this form group. Use a custom form control using the control value accessor. And this promotes reusability and makes it easier to maintain and reuse that specific form group, basically. I would also say update or improve the update behavior of your form and the form fields by setting the update on behavior of update on property whenever possible. Keep your forms type safe and utilize form groups, form arrays to group things together so you can handle the validation and error states more effectively. And when using reactive forms, handle the form changes and side effects reactively with RxJS and add operators to improve the performance, basically. Especially when you do things like server-side validation, add debounce time and distinct until change to help avoid excessive API calls.
How does Angular's control flow feature enhance flexibility in large applications?
The new control flow makes it a lot easier to do conditional rendering in the template and not only use if statements in the template, but also if-else blocks. While this was possible with the old version as well, it's definitely a lot easier now. Having said that, I think you should be a bit careful with it because I've already seen some templates that, are becoming too much if-else blocks, and that doesn't make things a lot better, of course. Then you have the new for loop. As mentioned earlier, it enforces you to use the track function, which just improves the performance and the rendering cycle. And what I also really like is the fallback options it gives you. So, for example, again, the new for control flow, it allows you to display something when the list is empty, and the defer blocks, well, it's not really control flow, I think. They also add a lot of cool things like placeholders for when the data is loading and stuff like that. So I think it's got a bit more versatile.
In your experience, what are some of the most common security concerns developers face in Angular and how can they mitigate them?
I think most front-end developers aren't that aware of many security concerns, so I would say that's the biggest risk and concern for me, I think. One of the most common attack surfaces or attacks is cross-site scripting. There are a bunch of things you can do to help prevent this, using things like inner HTML or bypassing Angular's built-in sanitation functions can allow hackers to actually perform cross-site scripting, especially using the inner HTML attribute. I think a lot of people are not aware this is opening a security risk. It goes double when it's for users a value of values a user can provide. So if you have a value the user provides in an input and you bind that to something else with inner HTML, then that can really become a security hazard. Let's say another common way to achieve cross-site scripting for a hacker is when you use string interpolation and again skip on the sanitation and it's done with values a user provides, because then the user can basically type in some malicious script and you will interpolate that in your template, and Angular will automatically execute any code inside the interpolation bracket. So that's definitely want to look out for. Another common attack is cross-site request forgery. Angular has built-in security for this, but you need to ensure the server, so the backend team sets a cookie named XSRF token, and provides it with a unique value basically, and then Angular will handle the rest for you, at least for the front-end part. And then lastly, I would say another risk we always have to be careful about is when using third-party libraries. Not only can the third-party library contain malicious code itself, they can also forget to implement some security measures. So always be careful when using third-party libraries and only install libraries that are trusted within the community, preferably open source. So the community can check them, and you can also run npm audit to check for vulnerabilities within your dependencies to see if there are any severe problems.
What role does automation play in deploying Angular applications, and what advice would you give to developers looking to streamline their development process?
Automated deployments help you to increase the velocity of your releases and reduce human-related errors, basically. I would set up a good release pipeline where you automatically run your linting, unit tests, integration tests, and end-to-end tests before the application actually gets released. Personally, I like to run the end-to-end integration tests against an acceptance environment before releasing, so I can really mimic the production environment as closely as possible. When tests fail, I like to send automated emails to the product owners responsible for that piece of the software, so the team responsible can act quickly and then fix the problem that is holding up the release. That kind of brings me to the next point, and that is that I like to have different staging environments. I think you should have a pipeline in place that automatically creates a test and acceptance environment, and only when you did some manual and automated tests on both of those environments, then you can release to production. Besides having a good release pipeline, you should also have some good systems in place to do a rollback to a previous version. So I like to create dedicated release branches, and then when something is wrong with one of the releases, you can just easily run a new release on the previous release branch you created. This can help you to quickly recover from slip-ups or things that slip through the tests. And lastly, you can take some steps to secure the pipeline, so not everyone can change it, and you don't expose secrets of the pipeline to people that shouldn't be able to see them.
My last technical question. What do you see as a feature of Angular development, and how should developers prepare for upcoming changes in the framework?
I think Angular is putting a lot of effort in signals, of course, so it can't hurt to get a bit familiar with those at the moment. I also think they're doubling down quite a bit on server-side rendering. So I would also spend some time investigating that and playing around with it if you're not working with it professionally yet. A general trend I think I see within all the front-end frameworks is that we are moving to a more unified standard, as in everyone is borrowing good ideas from everybody. I think in the end we will get to more of a web component-based solution where we just can develop components in more isolation and then kind of use them in each framework. So those are some things I think it's heading to, and I would dive into myself.
What are some of the lesser known but valuable skills that you think are crucial for success in tech?
First I would say having good communication skills. A lot of development is really collaborating with a team and clearly articulating ideas and implementations to stakeholders and other developers. So I think you should really be able to articulate things well and be a good speaker. I think you should be willing to learn. Software is constantly changing, frameworks come and go. So if you have a closed mindset and just think, I'm going to learn this one thing and keep my eyes shut for the rest, you won't last that long, I suppose. So be open, be friendly, and try to learn new things, try to read things. Another thing I would say is have a sense of business, because in the end, we as developers want to write the most beautiful code often. Our true purpose is to create business value, of course, for the owner of the companies. Try to think from their seat as well, and really try to add value and not only try to write the most beautiful code all the time. Well, that is great and also helps to create value. We should also focus on releasing stuff and thinking from the perspective of the user and adding value there.
How do you stay motivated during challenging projects?
Personally, I like it when I have to do stuff that I don't really know or don't feel that familiar with, because as I mentioned at the start of this talk, I like to challenge myself. So when I run into difficult things, it's kind of my motivation. I just like to learn new things. I like to push myself, and that only happens when you seek up the boundaries, basically. So that's how I motivate myself. I just see it as a very good learning experience, because if you always do the same things and stay in your comforting bubble, you don't really grow that much. So,
what music do you listen to while working, if any?
A lot of different stuff. It depends on my mood. It can go from classical music sometimes to hardcore even. It's, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we in the Netherlands create a lot of that music. So that as well. I listen a lot of R&B, a lot of hip hop, a lot of dance music. It really depends on how I feel and what I'm doing. If it's something that I can do a bit more laid back, or that it's something I really need to focus with, because if I really need to focus, I need some more calm music and some soothing tones. And when I'm just a bit more in a la 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 state of doing things, I can listen to a bit more intense or up there music.
If you weren't working in tech, what other profession would you like to try?
I'm not really sure. I've done a lot of hospitality work. I wouldn't like to do that anymore. My family actually owns a lot of restaurants and fast food bars, restaurants. I tried that a lot. I don't like it. I also did quite some sales, so I wouldn't go back to that either. So honestly, I wouldn't know at the moment. Since I've been in software, I really enjoyed it. It's the first time I really enjoy my work. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would really want to do something else. If I had to say one thing, it's probably something related to teaching.
What is your favorite way to unwind after a busy day of coding?
Yeah, just sit on the couch with my girlfriend, watch a movie, watch a nice series, do some cooking. I like to cook as well and to eat. So yeah, I don't know, just cooking, eating, and chilling on the couch with a good movie on.
I want to thank you so much for joining on my podcast. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was really fun to do. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I hope everyone who is listening can learn something from the things I said. Yeah, and thank you again. Thank you everyone for listening as well, of course.
Thank you everyone. Bye-bye.